Ever feel like there's maybe more to the universe humming beneath the surface, more than what we can see and touch?
Or even beyond what our, most advanced scientific tools can pick up right now.
Exactly. Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into some really fascinating ideas about cosmic architecture.
All based on that source material you shared with us.
Right. Think of this as your personalized exploration. We're aiming to spark those aha moments, bring some clarity without hopefully getting lost in the cosmos.
Definitely. And our focus today is on what the chapter calls the third and fourth triunities.
Okay.
These are presented as fundamental divine partnerships. They basically underpin the structure of reality itself.
From the spiritual side all the way to the energetic bedrock of things.
That's the idea, yeah, from spirit to energy.
Right. So our guide here is this chapter that really digs into these concepts.
And as we explore, you'll start to see how understanding these triunities might offer a pretty profound glimpse into, well, divine purpose and how the cosmos evolves.
And helping us navigate this, we've got our expert who's brilliant at making these complex ideas clear and connecting them to the bigger picture.
Happy to dive in.
Okay, let's unpack this. But maybe before the triunities themselves, there was something interesting in the source about perception and Morontia reality.
Ah, yes. Morontia. It's described as a transitional level, sort of between the purely physical and the purely spiritual.
Okay, transitional.
And what's really key here is how one perceives beings in this Morontia state isn't, like, absolute. It can be influenced.
Influence how? So you mean,
Yeah.
like if something affected your perception, the source mentions mechanical controllers, hypothetically.
Right.
Then a Morontia being could be standing right there, but you wouldn't see them. Visually imperceptible.
Precisely. But, and this is important, even if they're not visually there for you, they can still be present.
And they could still communicate. Audibly, maybe.
Yes, the source says they can choose to communicate audibly. This means they could interact with beings who can perceive them, like angels or midwayers, the text mentions.
Even if others nearby are completely unaware.
Yeah, it really underlines how much our perception shapes our reality. There might be a lot more going on around us than we typically apprehend.
That really makes you think, doesn't it? Okay, so before we get into the third triunity specifically, the chapter makes a point of distinguishing Trinity from triunity. Let's get that straight first.
Good idea.
Yeah.
So a trinity, the class example being the Paradise Trinity, Father, Son, Spirit, is presented as a permanent, inseparable union.
Inherently one. Always together.
Exactly, like an unbreakable bond in their very being and purpose.
Okay, so how's a triunity different then?
A triunity is described more as an association, a collaboration. It's three or more divine entities or realities working together for specific cosmic tasks or functions.
So more like a functional partnership.
Yes, and these partnerships could be long-lasting or perhaps more temporary, depending on the objective. The third triunity we're about to discuss, for instance, involves four main members working in concert.
4 members in a triunity. Okay, now that's interesting. Let's get into it. The third triunity, the spirit evolutional triunity.
Right, and the source states this one covers all spiritual manifestation, everywhere.
That's huge. All spirit, from start to finish.
From the very inception of any spiritual reality to its ultimate consummation, yep, it all falls under the cooperative umbrella of this specific association.
And the members are, you said 4, God the Father.
The Father, the Eternal Son, the Infinite Spirit, and the Deity Absolute. Those 4.
So why call it a triunity? Is it about how they function together?
That seems to be the reasoning, yes. It highlights the particularly coordinated interdependent roles, especially between the Son and the Spirit.
In actually bringing spirit into being, making it real.
Exactly. Their teamwork in spiritual actualization is apparently so central that the association gets named for that kind of threefold functional dynamic, even with 4 primary players.
Okay, that makes more sense. And the text emphasizes nothing spiritual happens outside this group.
That's what it says. It really highlights its foundational nature for anything spirit-related.
And it also mentions the Father existed before this triunity became functionally active.
Yes, that's an important point about the, let's say, cosmic sequence of events.
So let's break down the roles. The Eternal Son controls the spiritual aspect.
The Son is seen as the perfect expression of the Father's spirit nature, the source and pattern for spirit reality. But for that spiritual influence to reach everywhere.
That's where the Infinite Spirit comes in.
Precisely. The circuits of the Infinite Spirit are described as absolutely essential. Without them, the sun's spiritual identity couldn't be universally expressed.
So they work totally in tandem on all things spirit.
In perfect synergy, yes. The sun is the source, the spirit as the universal active presence and circuit.
Kind of like the sun is the spiritual power source and the spirit is the grid that distributes it.
That's a pretty good analogy, actually. It captures that dynamic well.
Okay, and then there's the deity absolute. Its role sounds unique, necessary for the evolution of spirit reality.
Right. While the sun originates spirit reality, the deity absolute is needed for its progressive unfolding, its actualization as it moves through those universal spirit circuits.
How does that work? The source says it's projected somehow.
Yeah, the idea is that the deity absolute facilitates the emergence of spiritual potential into experiential actuality. It's like the deep wellspring of all possible future spiritual development.
The potential.
Every nascent spiritual possibility, everything spirit could become, originates within the deity absolute. It represents the unlimited potential inherent in all deity.
So putting it simply, sun originates, spirit distributes and connects. Deity absolute holds the future potential and enables it becoming real.
That's a solid way to synthesize it, yes. The reservoir of possibility that the sun draws upon and the spirit makes universally accessible and real.
Okay, now the chapter also briefly lists 4 levels of reality: finite, Morontia, absonite, absolute. How does this third triunity relate to those?
It's the underlying framework across all of them. Because it governs all spirit manifestation, it provides the spiritual architecture, you could say, for development on every level.
So whether it's our finite spiritual journey or progress in Morontia or even higher levels?
Exactly. From finite beings like us through the Morontia transition onto the absonite realms and even into absolute spirit realities, the third triunity is the constant spiritual foundation.
Speaking of us finite beings, the thought adjuster, that fits in here too, right? It operates as pure spirit.
Correct. The adjuster functions purely within the spiritual domain governed by the third triunity. So as humans, we're living in finite material reality.
But through the adjuster, we're also touching a nascent spiritual reality, connected directly to the Father.
That's the concept. It's a fragment of the Father operating within this spiritual framework.
And our path, our evolution, involves eventually fusing with the adjuster, becoming more fully spiritual.
Yes, that fusion is described as the way to progress towards pure spirit reality, shedding those finite material limitations.
Which involves letting go of the finite self, in a way.
It's presented as a transformational process, yes. A spiritual shedding, enabled by the mechanisms of the third triunity working personally within us, unfolding our potential.
Wow. Okay, that's a deep dive into the spirit side. Shall we switch gears to the fourth triunity, the energy side?
Let's do it. The fourth triunity, the triunity of energy, infinity within.
The name itself points right at its function, energy.
Definitely. Its purpose is stated as eternalizing the beginnings and the endings of all energy reality.
From what? Space potency to Monota?
Exactly. Covering the whole spectrum of energy reality. So yes, it's fundamentally about the domain of energy.
And the members here are different.
They are. This one involves the Father Spirit, which is the Father and Spirit acting jointly in this capacity.
Okay, a joint function.
The Paradise Isle itself.
The center of gravity and source of energy matter.
Yes, the absolute physical center and source of primordial energy, like Monota, which is called a primary paradise energy form. And the third member is the unqualified absolute.
Okay, Father Spirit, Paradise, and the unqualified absolute. We met the deity absolute in the third. How is the unqualified absolute involved with energy?
The unqualified absolute is described as the ultimate cosmic reservoir, the source and repository for all primordial force and nascent energy.
Like the raw material, before it becomes stars and planets and stuff.
Precisely, the undifferentiated potential. The source says creator sons and daughters draw space potencies from it to begin their creations.
So our whole universe, even the master universe, is just a partial expression of this potential.
Just tapping into that infinite ocean of energy possibility held within the unqualified absolute, yes.
So it holds the raw energy. How does it get released or shaped? Does it relate to the Father and Spirit and Paradise?
It seems there's a mechanism. The source mentions the universal absolute, another one of the absolutes of infinity, maybe for another time.
Yeah.
The universal absolute kind of translates the Father's creative plan or will to the unqualified absolute, which is inherently neutral and non-personal.
Okay, translates the intent.
Then the unqualified absolute acts, releasing this primordial paradise substance called absolutum.
Absolutum, that's the fundamental stuff.
That seems to be the idea. And then creator sons and daughters, working on a sub-absolute level, take this absolutum and transform it.
Into all the different kinds of energy and matter we see in their universes.
Exactly, into the specific forms needed for their finite creations.
Ah, okay. That helps explain something the chapter mentioned, why local universes like ours with, say, 100 or so elements.
Right, are different from paradise, which is said to have like 1,000 primary energy organizations.
It's not just a lesser copy, it's designed that way.
It seems so. By divine design. Each local universe is intended as a unique environment for evolution, with its own specific energy matter setup.
Tailored for the beings evolving there.
Tailored for unique development and the growth of finite creatures within their specific energetic context.
And where do beings like the master physical controllers or the architects of the master universe fit into this energy picture?
They're deeply involved in managing these processes. Think of them as the cosmic engineers.
Managing nebula formation, suns, planets.
Yes, the shaping and stabilization of the physical universes. They work with the fundamental energies and matter that are ultimately governed and sourced through this fourth triunity framework.
Okay, so let's try to pull this together. Third triunity governs spirit, with the deity absolute holding the potential.
Right, the spiritual architecture.
Fourth triunity oversees energy reality, with the unqualified absolute as the ultimate source of raw potential.
The energetic architecture.
They seem like two absolutely fundamental, maybe interconnected pillars of reality.
That's a really insightful way to view it. These divine partnerships, working together, reveal a cosmos that's described as having profound order, immense purpose, and truly boundless potential.
All part of the Universal Father's grand plan.
That's the underlying concept, yes.
This really does open up some, well, new perspectives. Thinking about these structures, how might our everyday understanding of energy and spirit need to maybe evolve beyond how science or philosophy usually frame them now?
That's the provocative question, isn't it? If they stem from these coordinated divine sources.
Yeah, it really makes you ponder the deep connections. Are they really separate domains at all at the most fundamental level? Something to definitely think about. Thank you for taking this incredible deep dive with me today.
My pleasure. It's fascinating material to explore.